for the next few days. Let's talk now to Mark Logan, former Conservative MP, now Labour member. Mark, that's unusual. Just quickly, what made you cross the House from Conservative to Labour?
Well, at the time, the Conservative Party, just nothing was getting done. It was politics and spin day to day, and there was no governing whatsoever. And, unfortunately, that 4.5 years during that time was deeply disappointing because, probably like a lot of people going into politics, I was hopeful that we'd be able to do something that was practical. I'd like to see some benefit to the country and the constituency. And I see you laughing.
I'm wondering whether life's any different now, Mark. I just wonder whether that was changing seats on the Titanic, my friend. Listen, let's talk about Keir Starmer going to China.
Yes.
Should we be there? What is the benefits to the UK, and also what are the risks?
100%, Bev. And, I've watched a lot in the last few days, tons of media coverage, people saying that, we shouldn't be going to China and Starmer shouldn't be there. But, I mean, it's weaker that over the last 8 years there hasn't been a single British Prime Minister has made the trip to China. And that's, to use Prime Minister Starmer's words, whether you like it or not, China is a reality. It's the world's second largest economy. I mean, it might even be close to the first, given, PPP. And it's 1.4 billion people. It's a massive middle-class market. But the thing is, Bev, from my experience, I've spent years working, living, studying in China, in and around China, and it will have the answers, increasingly, for many of the problems that the world's facing with. And again, I know a lot of people don't like that. I refer back to your promo piece for the show, and when you were talking about, along with your colleague, that all the answers or the decisions made in DC affect how you live in the UK. Well, actually, for 20 years, I thought the same about China, about Beijing. If anything, GB News should be opening up a bureau in Beijing. It might be a bit difficult, but we're going to try and help you out with that.
Well, I understand that you speak fluent Mandarin, don't you? So maybe we'll get you a job out there, Mark. Am I right in that? You do speak fluent Mandarin?
I've got to put my hand up and say, go for it. Absolutely. 对的，我的中文说的比我的英文好。So it's funny because being from the part of the UK that I'm from, it can be difficult for people to understand my English half the time. Actually, when I was coming in, your colleagues didn't actually know what I was saying to them about the sea. But in Chinese, no one has a problem with me.
Genuinely, joking apart, though, given that you're now a member of the Labour Party, is there not a role that you could be playing with this government in terms of China?
Well, I am playing a role in terms of, so in Labour International, I'm actually chair of the Asia-Pacific branch, which covers a vast area, including China. And obviously, I've kept up. I've just come back from Shanghai in China last week, so I'm still heavily engaged. But I'm brought comfort because despite a lot of the criticisms that's made in social media of the Prime Minister, I think when it comes to foreign policy, in particular in terms of China policy, he has tried to do something different than the previous Conservative administration. He is seeing that China is the world's second most important country, and that if you want to play with the big boys, it's not just DC and Donald Trump you have to play with. You have to be able to dance with China and with President Xi Jinping. So I do think he's got the China policy right. There'll be a lot of people who will oppose it. It would be easier for me to come on here and, as your previous guest, my former colleague Bob was saying, to kind of wave or point the finger at China. But the reality is, China, it's not as bad as what a lot of people make out in the West and Western media. But obviously, there's many things that it does that we would disagree with, being in a liberal democracy. But there are many things that it does right and it does okay in. So, sorry, Bev, you're going to come in.
My concern, so there are some of us who kind of have sort of libertarian instincts, are very concerned that Keir Starmer is going out there to work out how to roll out his digital ID and his social credit score in a world where you can't speak your mind and all social media is banned. And I'm slightly concerned that he's going out there because he admires that sort of authoritarian government. Well, do you think, please tell me you don't think there's stuff he could learn in that regard that would work well in the UK?
No, I think, but there's a bit of guidance actually when it comes to this, because the whole social credit score thing has been a little bit exaggerated. Now, the surveillance side of things and cameras and CCTV cameras, there are a ton of those across China when you're in the major cities in Shanghai, Beijing. I mean, I should add, it wasn't that long ago that a lot of the world, probably including China, 15, 20 years ago, used to flock to London to learn the tricks of the trade of putting up the CCTV cameras. I know Mayor Bloomberg, previously with New York, came to London to learn such things. But there's an irony, and again, this is not going to be a popular thing to say, especially for our GB News viewers, but outside of elite politics in China, so as long as when you're not kind of dissing, bad-mouthing the senior leadership in China, at a societal level, it would surprise you how unwoke the country is, and actually how much freedom there is to speak your mind on a variety of topics. I mean, I often felt when I was living there, there were many things I could talk about. You could broach topics on ethnic identity, race relations, whatever, topics that you could not broach in the UK because of political correctness. Political correctness, it exists in China, but it's only in relation to elite politics, not on a societal level.
Which probably tells us more about how authoritarian the UK's got as opposed to how liberal and woke China is, if we did compare well in that regard compared to China. Listen, can I bring in my panel?
Absolutely.
Do you know what? Just, Mark, stay with me, because I want to bring my panel in as well here. I'm delighted to say that we've got Eric Ham in the studio with us, a political analyst, and also a new guest for me, senior political reporter for the Daily Mail, Alina Shirazi, is here as well. Listening to this, Alina, do you think the UK should be cozying up to China in this way, that actually the benefits might outweigh the risks?
No, I don't. I mean, I think in the world of tariffs for President Donald Trump, he is always using the art of leverage. I cover the White House, I cover the State Department, so I see how he does business. He does it America first. My concern is that your prime minister gets there and falls right into the hands of China and Russia. My concern is that our friends will become our enemies and our enemies will become our friends. The concern now is, obviously President Trump does things with a business idea in mind, but we don't want to isolate some of our best allies, in this case being the UK, of course.
Eric, what are your thoughts on this situation as Keir Starmer makes his way across the world to land in Beijing?
There's a scene from the movie The Godfather where it said, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. And I do believe that on some level it makes sense for the Prime Minister to actually visit with Beijing because, look, China right now controls all the rare earth minerals, and that's why we see so much concern, particularly over export controls, because now China is able to actually not only wield them with tremendous power, but also it gives them an enormous amount of influence. And I think also, too, the UK has to recognize that that's a massive, massive market, and I think it's a great opening. I think it only helps if, in fact, Keir Starmer actually doesn't get rolled in these meetings, in these potential negotiations. But again, we're talking about a massive potential market for the UK, and as long as there's parity, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Mark, last word to you then. What will success look like for Starmer on this trip?
I think he's laid it out in the statement from number 10, but for me it's recognising that the UK and China, we are both powers, right? We're both great powers, and that we have a very historic relationship, and that we shouldn't just be looking at the day-to-day. There's things that we can learn from each other, and indeed I think we will going into the future, whether it's on AI, whether it's on technology. So success obviously will look like commercial outcomes. It'll look like a bit of nice mood music coming from the diplomatic niceties over the next few days, the handshake with the president, meeting with Zhao Leji and Li Qiang and other senior members of the Communist Party of China, or the Chinese government. And of course the Prime Minister, when he finishes this trip, he'll be going off to Japan at the weekend, which should be another interesting trip. And for me, that region, East Asia, is the most dynamic region in the world, and the Prime Minister absolutely should be there. I fully support him being there, and I hope he goes out more before the end of his term.
Well, never hear Keir likes his air miles, as we know, Mark, and it won't go down necessarily terribly well with his base, but he's got issues at home as well, so he's probably delighted to be on that aeroplane. What a pleasure to talk to you, Mark Logan, former Conservative MP, now Labour member, fascinating character who also speaks Mandarin, and he's going to set up the